Amoabeng, who is the founder of the UT Group, the erstwhile UT Bank, and this book is what we're discussing, the UT Bank story, Faithful Decisions. This is volume 3 of the series. Volume 1 was on humble beginnings, about the man and his forays into business in Cantamanto. Volume 2 was about UT Financial Services, alone in less than 48 hours, that iconic company that swept Ghana's lending by storm. And of course, UT Bank, from 2008 to about 2017, highly respected bank before it had its troubles. Now, thank you for talking to us. We appreciate why you're doing this, because history is not just what's officially written. It's also what gets added. So in a sense, you are making society richer. As a journalist who likes economics, this is very, very important, just to understand the nuances. A few things that came to me. Sometimes when we say one foreign investors, and I'm saying this in relation to the Malaysian investments, not just in the BPI bank. Generally, we are not able to scrutinize the quality of those investments well, because the way they were running that bank before you took over, in any serious society, that bank should have been taken over much, much earlier. And they also didn't disclose all the things that they were doing. So when you offered them that amount and took the bank, it was almost a poison chalice. So half of your energy was just to turn around completely terrible situation. What's your comment about that? Because we make a lot of noise about presidents traveling abroad. Investors say they are coming to bring money, and yet they bring the money, and sometimes they are not here to do any long-term good.
Well, I think there are various aspects to it. The money that they are coming to invest, do the monies go into the projects 100%, or people take commissions out of it? I mean, Ghanaians have become so corrupt that you don't know how much. And if you do take monies up front to give them these investments, of course, they're going to screw us. That's the first aspect. The second thing is, what kind of valuation do we make to evaluate what they're bringing in terms of expertise, in terms of just the money and the training for locals and all those things? I think these are things that are critical, and any government trying to sell off any asset should actually think about that. In the case of the Malaysians, generally, and I guess that was President Kufuor's time, they took the shipyard, and then they took this bank,
Ghana Telecom,
and Ghana Telecom, exactly. And they come and they don't even bring much capital. And they come to use these facilities and bring them to the ground, make sure that, they can take whatever they can to pay for their investment. Because the shipyard was left in a wreck. BPI was absolutely nothing to write home about. It even owed Bank of Ghana $4 million, which you got to know later on. And Vodafone are still begging or still on its knees until we got different partners to take over. So generally, the thing about Ghanaians is that we don't love our country, we don't love ourselves. We only think about me, the guy in the position.
Me, myself, and I.
Yeah, and therefore, it's getting even worse now. What I see is getting worse, where people are thinking about what they can take from the system, what they can take from the state. And the state is supposed to actually be the one that we should all care about and nurture, to make sure they can take care of all Ghanaians. But that's what we're seeing. So we're not doing well with the foreign investment because of personal interest to start off with, and then lack of proper evaluation. And we've got experts. To digress a bit, you can't understand why our roads will get potholes in, say, 6 months, when we have qualified engineers signing off on these roads. So the same thing happened in the finance world. People are supposed to evaluate projects and see their viability and what it can add to the economy. And these are experts, but how come they do such shoddy job? So our problem is huge.
When you finish book 2, UTFSL was such a fantastic success story.
Yeah.
So when you proposed to the strategy session that you should become a bank, some of the so-called caucus members, led by Eddie in Tiamoa, advised you against that, but the day had been cast because majority supported the bank move. In retrospect, do you think we should have listened to the caucus after all that's happened to UT Bank?
No. I told you already, acquiring the bank wasn't so that we could become a bank.
Okay.
Originally, it was supposed that we could have a bank in the group. I wasn't a banker at the time. So we're going to have UT Bank, UT Financial Services, and UT that, right? But as I said, when we bought the bank, we realized that we were holding a bank that we didn't have the capital to run.
That's what forced your hand to do all those
therefore,
things.
Therefore, had to take that decision as in whether to let the bank we bought go and stay UT Financial Services, or merge the two. So instead of UT Financial Services, we have a UT Bank. And in the financial industry, the ultimate institution is a bank. So why would you own a bank and say, because I want to stay financial service? And a bank is supposed to also do lending. So the question was, can we go into banking and do the UT Financial Service kind of loan, which had made us successful? And we convinced ourselves that we could. So we set up what we call a Project David, and put some of our team members in there to look at how we can transition into a bank and still do our loans in 48 hours and as effective and things. But of course, when we got into practicalizing it, then we saw that there were gaps and cracks.
So before we go back, who are these? Okay, let me see who I can identify here. This is Prince Captain Budukumsen, who you used to call Capo.
Yeah.
So he was CEO of the UT Group. Behind him is Pelisua Mensah, who became the Director of Finance, Deputy. I don't know the guy next to her.
Charles Edu.
Charles Edu. Then
I think he so rest in peace is dead.
Then that's Martin Mensah.
Yes.
Who's next to Martin?
Martin Mensah is Justice Minka Primo.
Oh, is it from that lawyer's family?
Yes.
Okay, he was part of the. Okay. Then there's you, and is that your friend?
That is my partner, Joseph Nsunamwa.
Wow.
Who was chairman of the bank.
Was this an organic laughter, or this was engineered by the cameraman?
No. This was very organic. I'm sure some of them remember what transpired. And we just burst out laughing, all of us, uncontrollably.
It's a priceless photo.
Yeah, uncontrollably.
How the guy...
to see Charles Edu go off like, because he's a very calm, cool gentleman. Yeah, but nobody could stand on their feet. We were all falling apart.
Wow.
Yeah.
Those were happier times.
Very happy times, I guess.
So let's come back to the story. So the whole idea of acquiring a bank made logical sense as a step up. But you had to go through so much to just raise the capital, you know. So clearly it was a very tough choice. But I see a few tensions. The first tension I see is you've perfected UT Financial Services, which is based on two things: giving high returns to your depositors, and then giving quick loans to your
customers or our loan clients.
And banking is, in a sense, opposite.
Yeah.
Because the interest rates that you charge your financial services, you cannot charge for banks. So it means that when somebody comes to you for a loan in a bank, your rates must be annual, not monthly. That's problem number one. And number two, those who give you money, they will prefer it to stay at financial services because they will get higher returns for their money. So it's a very different business that you are entering. Okay. And then, of course, the expertise, and you stated this, the expertise to run a financial services was basically loan recovery. But in a bank, even somebody owes you can't go and recover the loan.
There's a whole lot of things.
The whole thing was so different.
Yeah, so I actually went to great lengths to expose the problem we had with the processes to the point that even in the branches, we had two managers. One for banking and one for lending.
Yes, lending.
And so who was the boss in the branch? And then we also had to look at the loan monitoring officers, as in those who went to collect the money. Because now that we're a bank, we have to do relationship banking. So
you can't do buga money collection.
No. So we had a whole lot, because when you disburse maybe 100,000 to a client, you don't want them to take the money away as in UTFSL.
Yes.
You want them to keep the money in the bank and then manage it so that at least you have some deposits staying in the bank. And then we had also problems with our software. We had to move from Finacle to Terminals, and we had the migration problems and all sort of things, to the point where somebody came and said, I've been credited with about 1 million CDs and I don't have that money. I haven't paid any monies like that.
The software was just misbehaving.
And I go, we are dead. You know, because if it's a debit, you come and tell us. But if it's a credit, how many people will come and tell us? So we had a lot of issues apart from the culture and all that.
And even for a fully chartered accountant who had run a financial services company for years, banking took some getting used to.
I'm still not used to banking completely, and I'm still not in love with banking. There are a lot of things that some banks do that I couldn't do. For example, some banks will just recruit some ladies and then set them targets and then unleash them. onto the market to go and meet their targets. And when they bring the monies, the banks will take them and buy treasury bill and make a margin, as simple as that. And sometimes I think it's not fair on the women. And I can't think of myself putting people's wives and sisters in that position. So people recommended that, listen, you have to do it. People are doing it. I said, it doesn't sit well with me. Just pick up some women, give them targets, and let them go harass people and probably even give a bit of themselves to raise the money and bring to the bank so the bank can make money. So there are some aspects of banking that I've never liked. You know, I think what I like is to give value for money. So one thing which separated us at UTFSL was that we're very responsive to the clients, because I had been in SME business for about 15 years. So I knew exactly what the problems of SME were. Because when an SME person comes to you and says, I need money, he means now, not 2 months later when the bank is doing evaluation.
Banks take too long.
Yeah. But by the time you give them the money, the business is gone. But they will take it. So it's
and then they will misuse it,
exactly.
Which is why a lot of NPLs go high.
So we responded 48 hours, give you the money, make sure the business is there, follow up, write our reports and everything, and then make sure you're applying the money properly. And honestly, since we left that space, I haven't seen any company seriously, because they're afraid of the risk. But when you mean well and you have mitigated the risk and things like that, and you love the person, somebody comes and you can look at the person and you see the situation in which he is, and you've been there before, and you sit down with them and say, listen, let's see how we'll do it. And you go through it with him. And then you give him the money and you start monitoring. That is why when they fail to pay, I get really mad. Because I have taken people's money and I've sat down to look at your problem, and we've agreed on how it's going to solve your problem for you.
But bankers will say, your approach as financial services, even though you give them the money quickly, your interests are too high because you charge them on the month.
Listen.
But the bank, even though they take long to give the money, the interests are more reasonable. So the people have no reason not to pay.
You know, sometimes we used to refer some of our good clients to the banks.
Okay.
So that they will enjoy lower interest rates, so to speak.
Good.
And the banks came back to us and said, those your good clients, they are not paying. I said, I don't know what you do to them. Because they were paying maybe something like those about 6% a month. But don't forget, we will not give you the money if the business cannot sustain it. In actual fact, we had a ratio called interest coverage ratio. The profit from the business should cover the interest that you're going to pay us at least 2 times. Otherwise, we won't do it. And we turn a lot of people away. So the point is, do you want them to take charge of the business, or you want them to lose it by wasting time and giving it? Because if you give them the low interest after 2 months, forget it, they've lost the business.
You brought some innovations to banking, though.
Yeah.
I need to mention a couple of them that I think you highlighted in the book. The issue of, you know, and I knew I could relate to this. You go to a bank at the time they close at 3.
Yeah, something like that.
2:55. Then security man will take their door. If you don't enter, I'm locking the door, and it's basically driving you away, even though you are coming to a bank that has your money.
Yeah.
You know, and then sometimes if you're a bit of a high net worth guy, they pass you through the back door, and I'm like, what? This doesn't make any sense. And you said let's close at 6 p.m.
Yeah.
And then number 2, let's do Saturday banking.
Yeah.
That was
because it's very simple. Workers close at 5. Makola women close about 5, 6 o'clock. And you have to close before you go and do your banking transaction. If you have closed at 3 o'clock, so they should go home with the money or what? So I felt we were exposing them to all sort of things. So I sat with my team and I said, listen, what would it cost? Not all the branches, but the branches that are in key areas where there's a lot of commercial activity, let's extend it to 6 o'clock. And then, of course, all the other banks had to follow somehow because, you know, it worked.
And Saturday banking as well.
And Saturday banking, because people go to market Saturdays, where should they go with the money?
Now, of course, a lot of your competitors followed this.
Of course, they followed.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I feel like even though the bank ended up the way it ended up, the sheer grit to do it, to take on the banking system, which is very conservative, very risk averse, in the way you did it with being the most respected CEO, and actually it worked because I think after 2011, you won almost every award. But I think 2011 was probably your best year. 2011, 2012.
Yeah, exactly. 2011, 2012.
You won everything. So this is just 4 years into
into
The
banking.
bank?
Yeah, we won Bank of the Year award, we won most respected CEO, most respected company, Johnny Walker, and all kinds of things.
In fact, in 2011, you even won Best Bank for Credit. I think some of the more revered categories, if I have it here, I'll just check. Because, and I think that paid credence to your UTFSL days. Second runner-up, corporate banking, best bank financial performance, most socially responsible bank, best bank retail banking, which is an award I think a lot of people would value because of your background. And Bank of the Year 2011. So things were going very well.
It started well, but we also had the public sentiments behind us. Because people loved the story, the UT story, because you saw it when it started with 4 people, Kantamanto, struggling, and then, so it was a story that people could identify with, and they loved it. So when we went into banking, we got a lot of people who wanted to work in the UT Bank, and also others who wanted to actually open accounts. So we had a lot of clients.
So this 2012 Respected Company and CEO Awards, I think PwC did it. This is Felix Addo, the country partner at the time. This is Edith, I think, of BNFT.
That is true.
I don't know the gentleman giving you the award, though.
I've forgotten him a little bit.
Yeah, so this is 2012 when you were on top of your game.
Yeah, and at 2012, UT, the group, we employed directly over 2,500 people.
2,500. You used to win all the Business Olympics. You used to come for Business Olympics. You and GCB were the 2 top companies. You used to win. Your people were so aggressive. Tug of war. When is this? Mahama giving you most respected CEO or something?
Yes, this was probably in 2010.
So when he was vice president?
Yeah.
When he was vice president.
2010.
It's interesting you said that in 2016, of course, you're having issues with UT Bank in 2015, 2016. He as president and Setekwe as finance minister both assured you that they believe in the plan you had to save the bank. So going into 2016 election, you believe that the BOG was with you, that the bank would survive?
Well, as a matter of fact, now President Mahama, who was then president in 2016.
2016.
Yeah, I went to see him. I said, we're having some problems. We need a turnaround and so on. And he looked at me and said, Kofi, forget about it. Under my watch, UT Bank is never going to fail. Wow. He told me point blank, like me and you sitting there. He said, under my watch, UT. So you go and see your brother, which is the Governor Bank of Ghana at the time, Nash. So go and see your brother and see what you can do to keep the bank.
And then the finance minister also assured you, said,
yeah, and he did. Because some of the problem was because the government wasn't paying its clients for them to pay, and on and on and on. And they set up the ESLA, that is, what was it? Energy sector, levy, whatever, to create funds to actually pay off government debts. So the government had these plans, and we also had a restructuring plan which we wanted to implement.
And then even in 2017, you said that 6 months into the new administration, June, you had still met the Bank of Ghana, led by the governor and the banking supervision, and they still believe that your plan to keep the bank afloat was correct.
Absolutely. I left the bank as CEO December 2015, 15. But I was still on the board, and because I carry the history of the bank, I always went with the new CEO and other board members when it's required to meet Bank of Ghana to discuss the restructuring plan. And they even gave inputs to it. Part of it was raising additional capital, trying to get more cheaper funds, mitigating risk or risk management aspects, and so on and so forth. So we went for meetings, and a series of it. So like you said, we went for a meeting in June, and at that meeting we went with an investor, possible investor.
And they were willing to put in money. I think they had actually paid 10 million.
They said they paid 10 million as token to show that, listen, they committed to it. So after that, I had left the running of the show to the board members and the CEO. That is why when the government collapsed the bank, I wasn't there, and I was probably the last person to hear about it.
We'll come back to that story. This is the point of it. I mean, this is more you call tell it all, but there's a lot in the book, and trust me, for those of you who are trying to understand our banking sector, you understand a lot of issues about the difficulty and the nitty-gritty of doing business in Ghana. We'll deal with some of those when we come back and how it all unraveled. This is the point of view. Stay with us.
Life is a celebration of moments. Big and small.
The sun is scorching, I'm feeling the heat.
With Piva drink, every moment